feel like WP is not much better, or in fact the same as PAP lah.
And the one that says she got baby face. So I really don't get why she is baby face. Hey, do you guys think that losing ministers will destabilize Singapore? Like, do you all agree with this view?
You cannot do things that are unpopular but are right for the country lah. Then that I feel is a slow decline to mediocrity lah.
Men living in Ivory's Tower. They don't understand. They're out of touch.
We are in a pretty good situation lah.
Chicken, you feel that you are in a good situation?
I don't know whether you all watched until this part of the video. It feels like I'm quite anti-establishment, right? It's because all of them are very pro-establishment. So we need to create more exciting things. So
My question would then be, right, to anyone who's questioning why government raised GST, like, what is the incentive for them to do so?
welcome back to a long-awaited backholder episode. Today, I think we'll veer a little bit away from personal finance, but I think everything is still under the general umbrella of what's happening in the Singapore context. So, as far as we are concerned, I think we are in the heat of the general election. It's a 9-day campaigning period. I'm not too sure when this video will be uploaded, but ASAP, I believe. Long story short, I think there were a few key issues that I've seen being repeated over the course of many of these rally speeches. And I just categorize into some of these main few categories. And we can freestyle our way into some of these topics in the subsequent part of this video. So the first part is, of course, the increased cost of living. It's a global issue, but I think there are a few considerations about whether wages are catching up in terms of the cost pressures. And then we talk about government handouts. And then, of course, by extension, the idea of GST increase, whether it's timely or not. Thirdly, we of course talk a little bit about housing affordability, $1 million HDB flats. Fourthly, I think there's this NTUC income saga. I think we have a very strong panel here. I think Bunti is in that whole space itself. Maybe you can share a little bit more light in terms of what's going on there. Fifthly, I think it's with regards to the idea of mixing religion into politics. And I think the last but not least, we have the idea of anchor ministers, the idea of GRCs, and what if the incumbent party actually losing some of these key important players in the cabinet. So I think I just wanted to provide the context here. So I'll just open this discussion to the floor. Maybe we'll get Seth on. So Seth, maybe share a little bit in terms of your experience of commenting on politics and your own natural interests, and what are you particularly passionate or interested about in this general election itself in 2025.
My background is I actually started my website. I wanted to write about politics lah. Okay, but thankfully that didn't take off. Right. Otherwise, I think I'll either be cancelled somewhere or in jail or something. So, but it's always been an area of interest lah for me. So I always follow GE since 2011. That was my first brush with politics lah. I was able to vote, I was able to volunteer, etc. Yeah, then over the years, I realized my political views shifted quite a lot lah. So this GE, I feel is quite interesting because it seems like there is going to be a blue wave, yeah, over at the east and northeast. So a bit scary, I find. I think personally a little bit interested to see where this goes, law, and what it holds for Singapore.
Scary household. Why is it scary to have a potential blue wave?
Potential blue wave. Okay, my take, I think my stand has always been that, okay, it's not that WP is bad, right? But I feel like WP is not much better, or in fact the same as PAP lah. They've always been called PAP light, right? And I really subscribe to that belief. And I do think that, okay, let's say now you just replace the government with WP people. I don't think we'll see any immediate changes lah, right? But I just feel like, the gradual loss of ground to WP will just represent a change in our political system lah. In the past, our political system is like, okay, you get overwhelming numbers of PAP into power. Okay, that means if you don't like PAP, you won't like it lah. If you like PAP, of course, you're okay with that. But I think that system ensured strong governance, right? And then it allows the government to do things that they want to. Of course, some people say it's a blank check, it's not good. But there are pros and cons to every system. But for me, I feel that for effective government to lead, it needs two things. Right? One, it needs to be able to capture power and amass power easily. Number two, it needs to be able to wield the power in a way that's good for citizens, right? And I think from what I can tell, okay, there are people that can do one but not the other, right? Like US, like when I saw Obama, right, I feel like he was able to get into power quite easily, both terms. But then when he was in his term, he couldn't really effect changes, right? Republicans were like blocking him at every turn. And then on the other hand, you have people like Kim Jong-un who can get power very easily, right? But then he's not wielding it in a way that benefits his people. Lah. And from what I can tell, PB government used to have both. And now I fear that any government, okay, even if WP takes over, right, in future, they will have to fend off the PAP opposition because the system is like that already. Right now, as long as you can be populist, you can promise certain things, you win ground quite fast. So I fear that future governments have lost the ability to form strong governments in Singapore. That's just my fear.
So you basically buy into the idea that one of the candidates in the ruling party did say before, if there are more and more opposition in parliament, he'll spend more time trying to fix the opposition rather
Yeah.
than to focus on. So you buy into that whole
Yeah,
narrative.
yeah. I'm a Lee Hsien Loong fanboy lah. I mean, in the past, I was very pro opposition, but over time, I saw how his government has done things, and I really feel like Lee Hsien Loong is an incredibly smart guy, very very astute. And yeah, I do think that when you are forming a team to form the government, right? Right? When you form a team to do anything lah, and you're losing your members left and right, it's very hard to form a good, strong team to do what's necessary to take anything forward, like be it the government, be it a company, be it yeah, any organization that you can think of lah. You do need a strong team to lead lah.
Eric, to share his opinion as well. Same two questions. Your involvement, if you have any affiliation, and what's a hot button issue that you have in this particular season?
Actually, for myself, when I was younger, I used to be like a PAP supporter. Used to be. Then after that, I kind of lean a little bit towards like, getting I accepted the narrative lah. We need stronger opposition voices because I think back in the days there were only like one or two opposition in parliament, so they are effectively drowned out by like the super majority. So I was thinking like, maybe they did need a little bit more like members to actually have like their turn to say something, so that was the thing lah. But I think recently the narrative like taken to an extreme. So they're kind of saying like, oh, we 10 is still not enough. We definitely need more and more and more until we form one third, and then one third we can like block them from changing. Okay, I think the NTUC thing, right? The Alliance NTUC thing, it actually shows that if a party has a super majority, right, they are able to enact a law, like to change some law, in order for them to block a deal. And then according to I think what I've seen online, right, WP said they abstain from voting on that particular issue because they feel that you don't even need to change the law, you just block it. But I don't think that's how Singapore actually operates, right? Like if there's no valid reason for the government to block something, because it's by right, from what I heard, I think although it's a co-op, it's like a private entity, sort of. So they can actually decide on their own whether they want to like sell the controlling stake to another foreign company and things like that. So they have the right to do that. So if government want to block, they definitely need to have some basis for doing that, because we are rule-based, principle-based country, right? We don't like, oh, just I block you just because I feel it's not very good, or we feel that it's detrimental to our citizens or whatnot. So there must be a reason why you block the deal. So, and it has to contravene some of their law or something.
It sounds a little bit weird to me though, that so you say it cannot block in parliament, but they change the constitution and they block it anyway. So by any count, I'm still blocking you. I'm just using a different method to block it down. And to a foreign entity, to them, I don't know whether they treat us as unfriendly, but anyway, you guys have a super majority. Whatever the government says, it will flow.
Mm.
If today I want to do something with you, I can screw you anyway. So does it really matter? It's just the optics and how you go about those are semantics at best, right?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think both sides is seems to be like rhetorical argument. Like I cannot do anything because PAP, the main argument is, oh, you see, we are party of action. We do this, we do that, we upgrade this, we build everything. But and then they say that the Workers' Party only know how to talk. Talk only, no action. Then the Workers' Party, yeah, I will have action when I have more people, then I can action. Now I can only talk, but talk is also important, right? Then they say, oh, PAP themselves started off as opposition also. So they talk until they get a majority, then they have action. So a lot of it is civil service. It's like government. It's not really like specific to a party. Like without PAP, like most of the things will still run as usual because I think it's constituent agnostic. Yeah, because like civil service, we won't tell you, oh, you come back another day. You're from Hougang, come back another day. No, they won't say that. What? Like they'll like polyclinic will see all patients. Yeah, so it's as long as you're Singaporean, I think yeah, they will take you. So I don't know. It's like when people say they want to vote opposition, right? You are basically taking a chance, lah. You're basically taking a chance that WP will deliver what they say they will deliver, which is a more robust democracy. And those people who thinks that, oh, why not we just stick with the tried and tested? Because PAP actually is doing quite a decent job. Like the country is stable, our currency is stable, nobody is like really dying of poverty here. Maybe people are having a hard time. I understand that. There are people doing very well, there are people doing very badly. There will always be people doing well, always be people doing badly. But the thing is the majority doing badly? Like, is a lot of people like under hardship? Are we becoming like North Korea? That's something we need to ponder about lah. Like, I think a lot of people like are very angry on keyboard, complaining and this and that. I think sometimes maybe it may be unique to their situation. It may not be a majority of people. That's why sometimes you see people are very vocal online. It's the vocal few lah. Then they keep going everywhere, type all the comments and everything. But at the end of the day, when you see the voting, it doesn't really translate. Like the Workers' Party rally, you see it's crazy crowds, right? Crazy crowds. But does that translate to the crazy number of votes they are going to get? Sometimes I don't see it happening.
But if you track over time, though, they are slowly conquering more and more. I mean, we will keep our eyes peeled as to what's coming. But I have a small pushback, though, because I sometimes have this kind of private conversations with friends, and then they like to do comparisons. Then they do benchmark testing, where is it in terms of like how we do for our tests, how we increase GDP per capita. And then we always 比上不足,比下有余, right? So the comparison between the North Korea part, I'm a little bit allergic to that, but I'll leave it as that first. So maybe last part, we get Bunti to share your thoughts on the current election season.
Yeah. Um,
New
so,
citizen. We have a new citizen in house.
New citizen. This is the first time I vote in Singapore elections. The last elections haven't got the citizenship. But I think what I can offer is my perspective of like looking at my ex-country, Malaysia, the elections, what's the vibes there versus what's happening in Singapore here. So I think Malaysia side, right, last time they have this Barisan National Party, a bit similar to PAP situations where they really have control of the governments for many, many years. And then, I mean, if you look at the history, they changed, right? They changed to opposition took over, and then Barisan is kind of like quite a mess there. But what the conclusion is that government change. Okay, they went through that already. Singapore, I don't know, and I don't think Singapore is going through these changes. Like just that it seems that there's more talks or discussions towards um, stronger oppositions, right? Now come back to Malaysia one. My observations, right, when I looking at Malaysia's elections versus Singapore is that when the change happened, right, actually there was a very strong push from the peoples to change the government because people's already fed up with the corruptions, with the don't know how many billions transferred to last time Najib's account, right? Then people are very angry. They don't talk about local stuff, one. They really talk about national, like the direction of the country needs to change. So that's why there's this strong push towards the other party, right? Then come to Singapore because my GRC is under Sembawang GRC. Under last time was under Dr. Lim Wee Kia, so Canberra regions. So quite interesting is that every time I listen to Dr. Lim's speech, right, he don't talk about like, wow, Singapore, we want to have this direction, we want to have these national policies. Not so much about that. It's whenever he spoke, right, it's really like, this is what I did for the Sembawang region. This is the new hawker center. This is the new, Bukit Canberra. Everything is about local. Like I really take good care of the local peoples, and you forget about like whether he's taking the PAP banner or taking WP banner. As long as he gets the local issues sorted out, right? Then people, I think, still very supportive of them. So I was thinking, right, because I don't have any affiliations with PAP. There's no strong reasons for me to vote one party against another. But it's just like looking at the specific MP, right, which I saw that he has been doing a lot of great work, right? And Sembawang really went through the transformations, although I only stay here for 7 years or so, right? So I think these are the things that actually people wanted to see. Of course, all the national stuff is important. It's just that I don't see there's a strong differences between, let's say, WP versus PAP versus other parties, right? That one is a bit hard to juggle, like what are the policies that they advocate for. But the local things, right, I think it's very clear one. Let's say if I have a complaint, I want to contact the MP went missing, okay lah, then opposition already next round. So this is how we try to, make sure they take good care of the residents. At least that's my view when I'm looking at Malaysia versus Singapore. It's really the local, the focus on the local issues is a lot more stronger.
Yeah, I think Lee Kuan Yew say before that he says deliberately designed like that, right? Because
Yeah.
if opposition cannot take care of, or rather like anyone, like MP, you cannot take care of a small town, right? What makes you think you can govern the country? Yeah, so he say, if he were opposition, he will try to take over GRC first and then expand from there, which is actually basically what Ao Tak Kiang did. Yeah, and then now we have our potential blue wave coming up.
Yeah, that's right.
But I find that interesting as well, right? Because if we go back down to the elements of the term MP, right, it's members of parliament, right? Not members of constituency. So yes, I agree that they are voted to elected by the people to have the mandate to help them voice out their concerns, and they should be on the ground making sure that your toilets are clean, got shelter, built polyclinic, MRT, make sure that everything is in progress. But yeah, at the same time, it also takes away time, generally because they are less endowed with resources compared to the incumbent party. I'm not trying to place a bet here and saying that, one is being unfair or whatnot. Of course, it's a tough job. That's why they're paid good allowances. On top of that, still being able to hold full-time jobs outside. But I think generally speaking, they're expected to deliver on all fronts, and that's why it's a very hard bar to hit as well. So not necessarily saying that whether national issues are important or not important, or whether local issues of building playgrounds and transforming the town is important or not. I think both are important, and there are all these elements should all add up to you making your decision on who you want to vote for. I think that should be the case rather than placing more emphasis on one over the other. That's my own personal opinion, at least. So okay, I think now once we have seen everybody's perspective, I think there are 3 more hotly contested GRC in this recent election. So of course you have Punggol, you have West Coast, and you have Tampines. So fortunately or unfortunately, we have 2 people out of these 4 that are in this 2 hotly contested area. So Eric, if you don't mind sharing which constituency you are in and what's your general thoughts now on whether we are seeing this blue wave or whether you think it's still a stronghold in the incumbent ward.
Okay, so I am from Tampines. the ward of Tampines. Yeah. So Tampines, I would say that for the past few elections that I've been voting for, right? I think I voted for 3 previous election, 3 or 4, like, I cannot remember, very old already. So uh we never had a very substantial opposition party, like no workers' party here lah, for like 20 years. So it's all the PSP and yeah, now there's another party coming. I'm not sure which party is that, NSP or something. Yeah, so I cannot remember their names, but they come, and the feeling that I get from most of the residents around, right, like neighbors and all that, is like they don't know who they are. Like, they can't even make sense. Anyway, I attended one of their rally, I think in 20, I cannot remember the year. I went to the rally. I still remember at the Tampines Stadium, and I listened in to that guy, right? That whole team. Then they pitch their ideas and all that. Basically, they are just very angry at PAP. Like, whatever they do, they're like, yeah, I'm very angry with you and all that. So for us, we look at the their talking points, right? We don't know, like, okay, so what is there to get behind? Yeah, so usually the outcome is that I think the voting result is always above 70%. The lowest was like 60 plus. It was never a very near fight. So this time round, I think WP come over, and there's a couple of people that are, I think the lead person, Faisal or something, right? I think he's quite an experienced uh MP lah. So he came in to Tampines to helm the team, giving it a little bit more credibility lah. And for Tampines, the incumbent side, right, I think it's a little bit, because they have 2 people retiring, and I think one of them, you all know, is with the Tan Chuan Jin, that the lady, she left quite a couple, like 2-3 years ago already. Yeah. Then how about the other one, Desmond, right? I think also retiring this term. So came in this Mr. David Neo, and the one that says she got baby face. So I really don't get why she is baby face. But anyway, can I just say that when I was in the grassroots, right? I was like, I think last year I came out of the grassroots. I was serving in another part. So while I was in the grassroots, I was serving under Mr. Bayam King. And I think that he is very dedicated to the Tampines, like Tampines North. So he really served the people very well, and he have this monthly kopitiam talk. So he'll engage all the residents. And sometimes I actually sit into one of those talks, right? Like a few of those talks. Then there'll be like angry uncles and aunties screaming at him, really screaming. And then he'll be like, Then he'll listen to them, then he'll talk to them nicely and all that. If it was me, I think I would scream back already. Like, it's really a very tough job. But he keep engaging them. And I think like 2 years ago, he had cancer, and then he posted, then he said that, oh, I'm recovering, please give me a bit of time. And then he's still very dedicated to serving in the midst of doing treatment and all that. So as far as I know, I think he doesn't have a full-time job. He's like a consultant to his former company. So like, I think the point that Chicken brought up earlier, right, is that the incumbent they have more resources lah. That is a fact. And also I am not so sure whether, like, the WP people coming in, if they have full-time job, right, how would they be able to manage to balance all these things? I mean, some of them probably can. Maybe they run their own company, they can delegate and all that. But the fact is that the incumbent, they have a lot more resources lah. Yeah, so they have more time to spend, like doing all these things, extra things for their residents. Then after that, going to parliament, talking about their policies and all that. So I think for Tampines, I feel that this time round, because more credible opposition came in, right? So there probably will be a shift in the votes. It won't be like majority PAP anymore. But my gut feel is that I still think the incumbent will stay in Tampines. But it will be a very, very, very close fight. Yeah, I
Yang
think
King
it's
is
very close.
a appointment holder. So he's
He's-
full-time government. He's
Yeah.
a SPS, Senior Parliamentary Secretary.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Mm.
So yeah. Any other thing I want to add? I think that's about it. But I gotta say, I stay in the Tampines West one, right? I only see the Mr. Masagos like once for a house visit. Once in my 9 years here. So I don't know, like different parts of Tampines, maybe like the engagement level is different lah. Because I'm used to the Tampines North one, like he's like super engaged. Every month 都有东西的 birthday celebration for everybody and all that. Yeah, so it's different. I think it's different styles of managing the constituent. How about yourself, Chicken? Pongo, how is
Any
it?
question from the floor first? Seth or Bunti, anything to ask for Tampines? We have a resident here. Or do you all have your own perspective? Do you all form your own opinion on online? And do you think Tampines should still be a stronghold before we move over to Punggol?
I'm surprised at WP's overall strategy lah. Yeah.
Why
Do
leh?
you want to
Like,
explain?
like,
Yeah.
like- okay, because leading up to nomination day, we see quite a few big names, right? We saw their star catch, Harpreet Singh. Of course, they have Faisal, who is a 14 years now, right, at Aljunied as MP. And then a bunch of more familiar names like Lee Jong. So instead of focusing them all in one new GRC, that means okay, my view is that if they just put all the big names, at least three in a single GRC like East Coast, right? They would have taken East Coast no problem. Right? That's what they did for Aljunied lah. They put everything into Aljunied and then they took it down. Sengkang, I think they didn't expect to win, but they won it anyway. So this time around, it is interesting lah that they actually feel their big names separately. So it's either one of two scenarios lah. One, they are actually not confident of capturing a new GRC, and therefore they just spread it out, try to test every area lah, see which one has the most promising one for the next GE. Or number two, they're actually more aggressive than I thought lah. That means they're not going to just want to capture a new GRC. They want at least maybe two or three more.
Interesting take. I actually do think that, personal opinion as well, I do think that they're being greedy. It's a little bit different from the old generals like Lau Kia Kiang. He wants to focus. It feels like they're really going all out trying to take. And like you said, because they were surprised by one star catch in Sengkang, being able to win over one GRC, and they're probably, I don't know, trying to use the same playbook again. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But Tampines wise, I did have a private conversation with Eric. Because I do have a few friends in Tampines as well. It's true. I think the ground sentiments is that Baey King has been a very hard carry. He's a very on the ground, very personable politician that a lot of people like. For the rest of the other parts of Tampines, I'm not too sure. So we shouldn't get too ahead of ourselves and say that Tampines is a done deal for the incumbent at least. I think it's still putting up a pretty tough fight. Now, if you want to pivot over to Punggol, I think Punggol is pretty interesting, to be very frank, because Harpreet was first marketed as the star catch, right? And they have been very stingy in terms of media appearances. You can see that a lot of all these media is trying to give them as much exposure as possible. But I think for Harpreet, his shot to being famous was with this podcast called Yalabat, right? And it garnered like more than 6-figure kind of view time. And of course, he was saying that senior counsel stacking up his credentials. Just to share maybe a few ground things that some of you might not have, let me share my screen. I just wanted to get your opinion first. I'm not gonna provide my read on this, but I just want to let y'all see from an outsider perspective, because y'all don't stay in Pongo. What do y'all understand from this pamphlet being given out? And I'll just share, and then I'll read it out, and then y'all give me your opinion. He said, "Dear residents, I've met and interacted with many of you in Pongo. I've engaged residents in North Shore during house visits and at coffee shops. I've been briefed and some of you have shared with me issues with North Shore residents face. If elected, I intend to be the MP directly in charge of North Shore. With your support, I will also set up a new Punggol Town Council and intend to designate Ms. Sun Xueling as the chairman of the Town Council to address the issue. I assure you that if elected, we will continue to engage with all our residents across Punggol, listen to your feedback and suggestions, and take action to resolve them. A quick vibe check, like maybe Seth, once you saw this pamphlet, what's your first thought that come to mind, or maybe few thoughts that come to mind?
My first thought is the video where he's standing there trying to shake hands with people and nobody want to respond to him.
Oh, but that's a separate incident, right? Like
Yeah,
that's a very out of context. But I'm just saying, like, if let's say you're a resident in this area, and then you receive this pamphlet, what's your first immediate takeaway?
Not sure lah. Okay, I feel like okay, maybe some residents will feel like, hey, they are he's parachuted here or what, which I find this parachuting thing, I'm quite ambivalent about it lah, because if you look at Baey King, right, which I will say is the hard carry of Tampines, right, he was quote unquote parachuted there in 2011, right, because Tampines someone withdrew. I think someone found, I think PAP candidate, they found some character flaw last minute. So Baey King was transferred over there lah. And then he's a good MP, right, by all accounts, by most accounts, yeah. So this whole thing, I don't know, if I'm a Punggol resident, I'll be like, okay, as long as you can take care of the constituency, you're not an unknown figure lah, because as a minister, actually, you have national impact on the whole country, right? You come here and you have served your other constituency well. I think it's okay lah. I'm quite ambivalent about it.
Eric and Bunti, anything before I share my own thoughts?
Yeah, just curious, like what are the issues that they're facing? Is it very different compared to the rest of Singapore? That's my first question. And second one, just from that information, seems there's some desperations there. I mean, just the vibes. I really don't know what's happening with Punggol. Yeah.
Eric, nothing?
Not really. I think I also received some. I received quite a few pamphlets. Like, yeah.
Signed off by a particular minister or by the team?
No, I think it's not a particular minister.
Yeah, it's by the team, right? So let me share my own opinion on this as well. So I don't stay in North Shore, and I don't want to dox myself to tell you where I stay. But anyway, I stay in Punggol. It's a very big part. But this North Shore one was sent to me by one of my friends that stay in that area. I personally also never received any pamphlet by the minister himself, even though he's fighting in my GRC. So the perspective was this lah. I think if you're an incumbent party and you are flagging out a lot of these issues, it kind of, I mean, it was implicitly hinting to me that the last 5 years, you all pretty much never cared the area lah. And then a lot of people are very angry already. Then now you all need to go and soothe the area and say, hey, guys, don't worry. When I come here, I own self personally come down and settle your issue. I mean, I'm not trying to throw shade to the incumbent as well. And but yeah, with regards to issues, North Shore, don't quote me because I don't stay in that area and I never visited that area much. But from what I heard from those people there was that I think number one, there were issues about signals, especially because we are very near. We are on the northeastern, the most northeast side already. So in terms of signal, in terms of network, there's some issues. I think in terms of amenities, rental fees were very high also. There's a lot of recycling of tenants. Food cost is very high. People keep changing. And then, yeah, it's just generally the whole infra there is not very well managed. I think that's the common concerns lah. I'm not too sure whether other parts of Singapore experience this sort of thing. But I would also think that because it's a new town with a lot of the works still in progress, so they're still trying to iron things out. But yeah, I guess that's his call to residents that he will personally come in and solve this issue. So that's my take as well. Desperate or not, I don't know. I don't want to make that call as well. But I think in Punggol now, it really do seem quite shaky in a way where you get a lot of commotions and you see it's quite funny, by the way. I've seen them in the interchange. Wow, the queue is like go and meet K-pop star, by the way, like to shake hand with Harpreet, to shake hand with I mean, if you are in that area, I'll presume that most of them are residents lah. If not, I'm not too sure why you are in the northeastern side of the country. So but that said, I think not all remarks are good because I've personally also seen pretty bad like conversations as well online. So we also don't know where this will fall lah. So this is the first thing I wanted to share. Second thing I wanted to share, let me share my screen again, is this. Quite a lot of commotions around it lah. If I can read just the Chinese part, right? if you allow me lah, and if my pronunciation is wrong, please forgive me lah. It's called 忠贤之言不及美人之笑，国必危矣。The words of a loyal and virtuous man are not as good as the smile of a beautiful woman, and the country will be in danger. I think there is a huge insurgence of this group of people that are playing based on how people look. I'm not saying that it's good or not good because your vote is sacred and you know who you vote for. But I think I just wanted to put the perspective is that there are a lot of elements that you probably want to consider. I'm not too sure whether beauty is one. Of course, if you're happy with it, good for you. But personally, for myself, I don't put too much effort into or put too much. It doesn't constitute too much into my voting decision itself, lah. But and for now, at least as a Punggol resident, I'm actually half. Actually no, I'm 51-49. I do have a tendency of who I want to vote for already, but I think still up for grabs. But I do want to kind of like put a caveat here is that I think your vote is the only language that politicians understand. So do try to cast it wisely and put in more thought rather than saying that, oh, because this person looks good, that's why I'm voting for X party. That's just my perspective lah. So if not, I'm too open to the floor if anyone has any.
In terms of the look part, I think not like one party is having advantage over the other. WP side have Alexis Tang, right? Then PAP also have Sun Xueling. So
I must say though, I think for Sun Xueling's ward, I believe she was at SMC in the previous rounds, and she always won with a very big majority. So from what I heard as well, because I'm not under. Actually, you see, I keep eliminating like that, then you know who I'm under whose ward already. But from what I heard also for her ward, right? She's quite an on the ground MP as well. So that's why she's always getting very high vote share. But of course, we know GRC is a team effort. A lot of considerations come into play, lah. And also one side note I wanted to put is that if I'm part of PAP, I feel very sway, very unfair. I feel like there's a lot of 民怨. I don't know how to combat 怨气, like in the current population because of cost of living, rising prices, HDB affordability. You put everything into the mix, right? You are fighting an uphill battle because you have been an incumbent for so long, and people, any problem, they just blame government, blame PAP. I think it's quite unfair, but then the issue is we are not running parallel worlds. Like NVIDIA cannot run a twin world in Singapore if it's not governed by PAP and governed by PAP, and they can compare the results. So a lot of all these are based on emotions, feelings, and I would just say that if you're in the game of politics, you have to accept that.
Yeah, I have a questions here because do you think this is really the sentiments of especially those of the younger crowds? Because I believe, let's say if you look at the demographics, right, Punggol still consider the younger populations as compared to the rest, right? So would you agree that, let's say if I say whoever control Punggol, right, that party will have a better chance of taking control of Singapore just because the younger populations, the older one, they'll get old, they will die, right? But the younger one will become a lot larger in terms of the populations. They are the one that deciding the directions of the country, right? So do you see that as like Punggol is more important in that sense?
Well, I'm not a political analyst. This question a bit too deep, too high up for my level.
Okay, maybe let me try to answer.
Yeah, Eric.
We are aging population. So the young people, not a lot. So you see the young folks compared to like people like me and like my peers are 40s, 50. We're not gonna die so soon. Like the age at which people die, average is about 80 plus.
Yeah, but Eric, that's the thing. When we say young, right, it's not like a particular age, It's not like, oh, only if you are below 40, then you are young. Because today's young, right, could be, let's say, below 40, right? 10 years later, young, right, it's like 50 years and below, So you move on. Just look at, let's say, business, right? When we talk about like gaming, last time, let's say 30 years ago, we talk about gaming. Gaming is like for people who is like under 15 years old. But now you talk about games, mobile games, computer games, right? That is like below 40 years old, because these are the population actually grown up with the games. So now the question is that among the youngs, right, like if you are able to understand what's their needs, understands what they are looking for, and then you are in terms of like parties manifesto versus the residents thought process, right? They are in sync, right? Once it's in sync already, next time they are most likely to continue to vote for you as well. So That's
Yeah.
my
So in terms
to
of
clarify on
the
the yeah.
Yeah, in terms of the percentage wise, right? Like you say, since the young people will grow up slowly, right? Also with the party. So if let's say the young occupies like 25%, a rough estimate, then 10 years later, that percentage maybe will stay around the same. So I don't know, unless you're looking to convert the slightly older ones, slowly encroach into their, because yesterday I just spoke to the one of the center managers, right? I went to a tuition center, the admin lah. So I was asking her because she also stay Tampines, so we had a very interesting conversation. And I asked her about what do you think about this elections like this year, and they said, wow, very exciting, oh. Like last time no such thing, don't have workers' party. Now they come already. Wow, my son say vote blue, wow, whatever not. Then okay, so anyway, we were talking. Then she said something which I thought was quite it made quite an impression on me. She said that she told her son that next time you when I'm gone, you do whatever you want. But for now, stay the same. Okay, I don't want like big changes, and then okay, don't mess up everything. Like just keep it status quo. Yeah. Next time when I'm gone, then you're whatever lah.
I think what Buddhi says makes sense lah, because okay, let's say now currently there's a particular GRC or SMC, the vote share is maybe 55 to 45, right? And then if we move forward 5, 10 years, and assuming people's voting habits don't change, it will remain 55, 45 unless, right, the new younger crowd come in and then they vote differently and then it swings the vote. So even though they can represent a small percentage of the whole population, right, but they can slowly tilt over until the GRC goes to, to wherever the tilt is lah. So I do think that there might be some tilt there of young people deciding the election. I mean, I think the past few elections, in fact, Sengkang was decided by the young voters lah. Yeah, then would that represent a national shift? Yeah, I think that's an interesting question also. I feel that it's inevitable lah, that PAP will slowly lose its majority. Not even super majority lah. I think it's like now, if anyone's interested in a political career, right, don't join PAP anymore. Just join WP. Yeah.
I think the Sengkang shift, right? If I don't remember wrongly, because I last time I used to go there for like my cell group meetings and all that. So I visited Sengkang like every week, very, very frequently. So I think there was this mall, if I don't remember wrongly, right? There was this mall in Sengkang that they say they're going to open, and then it keeps getting delayed. And the building was just there, like not completed, and then there's no people going in to set up shop and everything. And then so the residents around there, because back then it was quite a new town, I think about 14, 15 years ago. So they were like, no amenities. So they were looking forward to that mall being set up. And then they keep asking the MP, hey, how come the mall still not up yet? Not up yet. Then they say, it's going to be up, it's going to be up. But it still didn't go up. Then until the G, then they like fed up lah. Let's try the other party. And then after that, the mall got set up almost immediately. So I think it was not merely an issue of like the young people choosing to vote the Workers' Party or whatnot. It's just that they have this very, very bad issue at the local level that swayed their vote lah. So they all decided like, okay, Aljunied was a different case, right? Aljunied, it was like kind of a peer pressure from the whole nation, like, hey, you guys got to do it. You guys got to be the one to, lead the change. The GRC got to be the first one in Singapore's history. But Sengkang was a different ballgame. It was more of a local issue. So I was just wondering, Punggol, the thing that Chicken shared with us, could it be the trigger for like a local issue again?
But I think North Shore is a very small part lah.
Very small.
I'm not too sure whether it can, because Punggol has 100,000+ people, residents in the whole place. I think we are looking at 120 something thousand. So I'm not too sure whether that block of voters is able to circumvent or mount an attack against Sun Xueling's ward lah, because seriously her ward is very strong. So I'm just thinking you play the calculations out. Of course, then you have a group of voters that will also think they want more check and balances, they want a credible opposition in, and then now Workers' Party push out a very credible slate of people. Yeah, at the same time, PAP comes over with a DPM and so-called out of the 4 people, you have 3 ministers, 1 DPM, 2 half ministers. So what are you gonna do? Then the vote is up to you lah, and then you let Punggol residents to decide on who you want to bring in lor. That's my take. I don't have a very strong like inclination now, but just that on the ground sensing, that's what I've been seeing and what I've gathered so far lah, from my perspective. Yeah. But in terms of the young voters crowd, right? Specifically for Punggol, because it's a BTO town, right? You see BTOs coming up and up and up and up. So that part, that particular youth capture, I don't know I don't know what's the definition of youth lah, but basically those people in the setting up of family, that stage. If not, that's why you will buy a BTO ma. It's either you are 35 and above as a single, or you are planning to set up a family. I think that portion of the voter, it will give you a lot of hints and details on what these aspiring families are thinking about when they're casting this vote. So actually, this vote share, even if let's say the incumbent continues to win, but I think the vote percentage itself will give you a very telling hint into what people are thinking about, especially in this particular town after they redraw. Because last time we used to be part of the whole Punggol Pasir Ris thing, and then in fact, I would think that but this is my own personal movement lah. I think that Punggol and West Coast are quite equal in terms of the chances of winning. Then I'll put Tampines and the rest more not behind. Like Tampines, East Coast, I think I'll rank them second lah. So I actually more focus in terms of both Punggol and West Coast, whether the opposition can mount an attack to the incumbent. Yeah, so
I
that's
think
just
West
my
Coast
personal
PSP
feel.
won't win. West Coast.
PSP won't win.
Because Jurong was drawn in. Yeah.
You mean the Taman effect lah? But he's no
Mm,
longer there, you see. That's
yeah
the thing.
lah, but then Jurong, I guess. Okay, I mean there are some faces I don't mind seeing lose their seats.
Okay. You want to say who are those faces?
Don't want lah. Don't get me into trouble. I think I offend a lot of people by being more supportive of incumbent already. Then now I want to offend people on the white side also. I don't want.
Hey, do you guys think that losing ministers will destabilize Singapore? Like, do you all agree with this view?
It will erode Singapore. It will erode the team lah, as I mentioned. Yeah.
I'll be so that was the slate that is being handed over to us as residents ma. So it's like you want to vote for more check and balance, and you want a stronger Workers' Party so that they can check the government, or do you want the DPM that is the task force man, right? They were joking around. But it's true that I do believe that Minister Gan himself has gained a lot of mind share, especially during the COVID. Now he's leading the US tariff task force and everything. He has a lot of media exposure, and he's probably someone that's quite well liked lah. I'm not too sure about as a constituency guy, meaning like doing the municipal issues, but as a overall country head, I think he has garnered quite a bit of goodwill. So now they thrown to us, and then they ask us to choose, right? I don't know. I feel like it's a very hard decision. Because to be very frank, my own personal thought process back then was when they were speculating, they said that Pritam Singh might come out to lead a GRC. So today, if actually Pritam Singh comes over to Punggol, and he fills himself with Harpreet and maybe one other credible guy, right? I would have, without a shadow of a doubt, I would have voted for Workers' Party. But then today, now, they tilt the equation, you see. And then to me, when I look at DPM, I want to cast my vote for him for whatever that he has done. But yet at the same time, you have that conundrum, right? But I'm also, on the other hand, also slightly worried that if Singapore really will be eroded, and if we are so easily destabilized because we lose 2 or 3 ministers, then I think we have a bigger problem at hand, though, that in terms of how we structure our cabinet and our political system and whatnot. So that's a
Yeah.
there's no easy answer lah. That's all I can say. But I will be quite worried as a youth that if you lose 1 or 2 key ministers, and then
Yeah,
our system bye-bye.
won't happen one because when we talk about government, it's not in a couple of individuals, right? You know, even high profile one also, Lee Hsien Loong also is retiring, right? So losing, I mean, as in retiring as a prime minister. So I'm saying that is that one or two people retired is fine. Let's say losing one or two minister, it won't be that damaging.
Okay, it's not about a immediate, oh wow, Singapore become very cui. It's about slow erosion, you know. Okay, because you consider okay, again, as I mentioned, like, right, you want to form a strong team to do something, right? And if you're losing one or two, I guess you can get over that. But if you continue, right, every 5 years you lose another one or two. Okay, first of all, you lose key members. Secondly, there are also things like how do you attract new talent, right? PAP, like as I mentioned, if you're serious about your political career, don't join PAP already. And I think that's, why would talented people now join PAP? It's because, I mean, they won't, I mean, okay, not won't, but it's harder to attract. And think about how difficult it is already to attract people to be in government, right? A lot of people don't want to be in government because, first of all, have to take pay cut. I mean, some of the top talent, they do take pay cut to join government, like Edwin Tong, like Indrani Raja, etc., right? Second, loss of privacy, this kind of things. So it's really very difficult. And then once you take that, how do I put it? Now it's even harder to win. So why would I even join the PAB side, right? So it's a slow and steady decline of the ruling party, lah. Okay, and then some people might think, okay, but so what? I don't, okay, that's PAP's problem. But PAP's problem, I think, is also the nation's problem in the next 10, 20 years. Lah. As I mentioned, also, once WP take over, I think WP will face the same problem.
Yeah.
I think that we shouldn't just take democracy as the be all end all answer. Like, it's a means to an end, right? Democracy is for, okay, it's not, you can have a fully democratic system that nobody's happy under, right? Or you can have a not very democratic system and then people are happy under it. Lah. I personally believe that we have the closest model to an absolute, what's it called? Benevolent absolutism, right? Which is like a xianjun, okay, a wise emperor, right? They have very strong mandate. They can do whatever they want, but they do it for the good of the people, right? And I think Singapore has the closest model to that. And that actually is ideal. I find that, right? Because, again, if you have a democratic government, but they, popularly elected and they do rubbish, there's a very big example now in the global stage, right? What does it do for citizens? So what? Okay, you voted him in, but that's what he's doing, lah. So I feel that we shouldn't. Of course, I'm not saying that you must 100%. Okay, you cannot vote, lah. So I think Singapore we have had a good system all along. Okay, we can change our leaders. It's not easy to change. We can change it, but if they're doing an okay job, 70%, 80%, A1, A2, right? Do we really need to make massive change to the system? That's what my question is now.
But we are being a little bit theoretical here already, right? Like you talk about a good system, but these are all backward looking. You are looking at the rear view mirror. So clearly we have our benevolent one coming down. He's stepping down. And for whatever it's worth, I don't know how long will be the next cycle. And then when you keep pushing the cycle forward, next 2, 3, 4 cycles, we are more worried that it will swing because they said, right, like absolute power corrupt absolutely. So in a way, that's why they keep chipping off the idea that, oh, let's have a bit more check and balance. Let's do, of course, if you swing to the other end, it's also bad because then you get nothing done. So how do you straddle between these two opposing philosophy?
Yeah, it's very difficult, lah. I'm not okay. I don't agree. There's also hindsight, like it's more looking forward also because if you're if you just have to keep worrying about winning the next election, which I feel like PAP now has to, lah, right? Even the next, okay, this election already seems shaky for them, right? What about the next 5 years? So if you always have to look at short-term things like 5-year blocks, then your long-term plans are never going to it's going to be much harder to do your long-term plans. You're going to just become increasingly populist, lah, right? Like you cannot do things that are unpopular but are right for the country, law. Then that I feel is a slow decline to mediocrity, lah. Yeah. And as for the system, checks and balance, I feel that, okay, like the Allianz and income deal, right? I think, people keep criticizing them for that, but eventually they bowed to public pressure. So as we can see, the check and balance does not really need opposition to be in parliament. Of course, the possibility of them going into parliament is what scares the incumbent in doing the right thing, lah. But that's one of the things that scare them. But I do think they are consultative, lah, right? I feel that a lot of criticism against PAP is sometimes quite unfair, lah. I know people keep saying, oh, the 4G leadership is not the same as the last one. But they can't be, right? They are now a lot more consultative. Can you imagine the Lee Kuan Yew administration where he just does whatever and goes ahead with it? Are you sure you want someone, a strong man now, to come and say, okay, let's do this, let's do that? Right now, they have shifted so much to being so much more consultative, and then people are like, oh, you are nothing like the Lee Kuan Yew administration. Yeah. I don't know. I feel that we are being very, very harsh on PAP, right? If you look at all the hot button topics, I don't know whether are we still going there? The issue,
We can if you
Which
want
one?
to.
Which one?
Yeah, which one
the
you want to?
GST, housing, all this, right? I believe that most reasonable people in power, okay, if WP takes over, right, the lot of similar conclusions will be drawn, right? Already there are things like ministerial salaries. Remember in 2011 when they keep harping on ministerial salaries, WP lah. Even now they're still doing it. Yeah, but then their proposal for ministerial salaries, it turns out pretty similar to PAP. Okay, now that they have a chance of forming the next government, I mean soon, right? It seems like they are also okay with billion-dollar salaries. Right? That's one example. Another example would be things like housing lah. Housing is just not something that anyone can solve. Right? It's a limited resource in a landlocked city-state. It's always going to be certain cost. Okay, and I think Singapore has done very well. I mean, if you go and look at most affordability index, we are one of the top in the world already. How much more can you improve on that? Yeah, so I don't think opposition or any party has a magic bullet. I mean, even incumbent doesn't have a magic bullet to say, okay, I can make housing affordable overnight. Right? You have to balance the stakeholders' interests also. Right? If you like just make HDB prices go down overnight, then how about people who have been reliant on it for retirement, those sort of things? Homeowners won't be happy, right? So I think incumbent has the burden of balancing everybody's interest, balancing the realities of limited resources, etc. But opposition just need to write blank checks. Yeah. Ironically, they keep saying deny PAP of blank check, but opposition just issue blank checks left and right. You can say anything. In WP's manifesto, they say, we can lower the age of BTO to 28. Then they just say this is unlikely to affect marriages and housing prices. You can just say unlikely, then unlikely. Okay lah, you can say they don't have data, kind of thing. But again, yeah, they can promise everything, They can say, oh, then I don't have enough data support, so I just promise this first. But whether or not they can implement is a whole different ball game lah.
But do you think that I'm just asking, throwing to the floor here, right? Do you think that like Singaporeans sticking to WP more, right, as an opposition, it actually shows us that we are still looking for people whom we deem are very successful to come and be the credible and loyal opposition? Because you see those really minor smaller political party, right? They really auntie uncle one, like really auntie uncle one. So it's Singaporeans
Not all
are not so taken with them. But you see Harpreet Singh and Alexis and all these more high profile one, right? You realize that they are incredibly successful outside in the private sector. But if you shift that lens, right, like what you say, if you shift that lens and say that, oh, PIP have this star catch, also like a star lawyer, senior counsel, whatever not, right? And they somehow manage to bring him into their ranks, right? Which they do have from time to time. They have people like those private practice surgeon, very successful one, lawyers and all that. They do bring people like that in. But when they bring people like that in, it is not like if he's a star catch or she's a star catch. It's not. It's like men living in ivory tower. They don't understand. They're out of touch.
Yeah,
You know?
the Chan Chun Sing Jamus Lim meme from last election, right? If they change color, if Jamus were wearing white and then Chan Chun Sing wearing blue, Chan Chun Sing will be wow, so humble, so
lor.
relatable. Then Jamus Lim, talk got slang one, what like that. Yeah,
So it's really like you say, is because you're the incumbent, people view you through a certain lens already. So you really cannot afford to slip out because the bar is set so high.
yeah. PAP got 3 senior councils, at least 3.
Yeah.
currently.
So whoever that they bring in, people are like, yeah, same old thing lah, same old group thing they all think the same way one So there's really a no-win kind of situation.
But to be very frank, using your that line of logic, right? Uh, they are bearing the legacy of the system, of the idea of being whiter than white.
Yeah.
All these are all these are DNAs being imbued by the past leaders, and they set the standard so high themselves.
Yeah.
And that's why we have a respectable system, we have a well functioning one, an efficient one.
Mm.
And then now you turn around and tell people that, oh, well, you guys are too harsh. It doesn't make sense also because you benchmark yourself against those. Now you are telling the people, let's unwind this and let's go back. You get what I mean? Because of the whole circumstances of how it evolved. That's why people are a lot more willing, or people are a lot more forgiving in terms of the opposition, allowing you for more slip ups. Well, and then now they say that, oh, this is one of the most credible slate of people that they're willing to put forth.
I
And
think
this is born by whatever that's happened over the last 3, 4, 5 decades. So that's how we have come to where we are today. And yeah, lah. But I have a small point I wanted to push back on Seth though. I wanted to ask you your conversation or your idea that just now you're talking about housing, affordability, and then the CPF system and whatnot. Do you believe that I'm not too sure because I'm not in policy work, but I'm just thinking from a layman perspective, right? A lot of people are complaining and they have grants and they're pushing prices to sky high, and then now they can't bring the prices down already because so many stakeholders are reliant on these prices to stay high so that they can downsize or right size. Yeah, at the same time, newcomers are finding it a little bit tougher, so they are pumping in a lot of grants. But in and of itself, did like last time when the system or policy was working, it's fine. But then once you keep pushing it up, right? Like now, last time was 3 times, now it's 5 times, closer to 6. Next time it's probably going to push to 10 times because nobody's going to put a stop to this, right? Then it will, the trajectory that we're going is a little bit worrying, especially for somebody that's younger. I'm not too sure whether if somebody comes in to criticize or to at least put a stop to this and let's review this whole system. The legacy of the issue is that we have some workarounds to this. I don't know whether this is something that you think the opposition is doing, or you think it's useless that, oh, we should continue. Since it's working, let's continue on with this whole system. Like, what's your thoughts around this?
I think that Singapore is in growing pains lah, right? So housing is it's just going to be something that is very difficult for anyone to solve, right? And if there are good solutions, okay, because again, it's not just the incumbent party, right? It's the entire ministry with civil servants, right? And some of the brighter minds, I hope, that are in charge of finding the next solution, right? So I feel that some things just can't be helped, right? Regardless of what party gets in power. So when someone come and say, okay, I can make housing affordable, that's a very big question mark, whether or not you can actually cash that check and make sure that everybody's interests are in place, right? I don't think, okay, that the PAP government is so incompetent until they can't do anything about the situation. And I don't believe that anyone will say who challenges and has that magic, again, the magic bullet to solve this issue of making housing affordable, simultaneously affordable for anyone who wants to buy it in a landlocked country, and then still maintain stakeholders' interest for those who are already vested, those who already rely on their property for sale. And again, by most measures, I think we have affordable housing. Okay, maybe not everyone who want to buy can buy, but if you look at most price to income ratios globally, you have to compare somehow to other countries. We are one of the best places to be in for home ownership. I don't know any other country in the any other city where people of the city expect to own housing in the city. And then you tell them certain areas, they also don't want. No, I want more central, that kind of thing. Yeah. So I really think it's expectation. If you really want to own, I don't see how it's that difficult, because personally speaking, okay, right, I managed to own as a single. I'm playing on hard mode. That means I don't have spouse to buy HDB. If I bought private property at 31. Okay, this is before the influencer thing. So don't come and tell me, oh, you influencer. And I was earning $1,000 per month for how long, So I only qualified for credit card at age 29. Yeah, then I think on a fairly median income, I managed to save enough money to buy a condo. Okay, not the biggest, not the best. But yeah, so I don't get it why people say, oh, wow, I think I'll gonna cancel. Yeah, yeah,
Wait,
I
Seth,
don't
so
think,
on
yeah,
this note, right? So do you think now, given your context of hard mode, somebody of your current circumstances, are they still able to do what you did, or has
yeah, I think
times
so. I
moved on
think
or
so. I
changed?
think as long as you have a median income, all right, or close to median income, you can get a nice, pretty okay property lah. Eventually, right? It may not be immediate, but again, it's like that one ma. It's like you cannot say, oh, I want nice condo at age 20, 23, 24, or something like that lah. Okay lah, again, maybe I'm not playing on super hard mode lah, playing on medium because I don't have kids. Okay, but again, same thing lah. I mean, if you have a spouse, your kids, you also get a lot of grants. You get access to HDB, all kind of things. So I think the game in Singapore is still fairly okay to play. I mean, just compare yourself to any other city in the world, right? You can find closer neighbors. You can find further away ones. We are in a pretty good situation now.
Chicken, you feel that you are in a good situation?
Wow, this is a very thorny issue. I am. Actually, in fact, if you are in the mold of what the government has set you out to be, which is you go to the normal route, you go through your education system nicely, you find a job that contributes CPF, you find a spouse to settle down. I would think that I'm playing on easy mode. Like really super easy mode. Like the PAP will supercharge everything, give you down payment. They cited a figure saying that 8 in 10 don't need to even fork out cash. Your CPF covers everything. As long as you are okay, you don't want to go and whack the 700-800K BTO, you go and buy a normal place on the outskirts, buy smaller one, don't all want to whack 5 room. If you're okay with 3 room, 4 room flat, I think it's really easy mode. Like to be very, very frank, to give credit where it's due as well. To not say that. Now I know. I don't know whether you all watched until this part of the video. It feels like I'm quite anti-establishment, right? It's because all of them are very pro-establishment. So we need to create more exciting things. So I just wanted to say that the perspective is this lah. That if you really follow, but here's the issue, right? A lot of all these policy actions, they're trying to catch the majority. And a lot of the tail end people that fall through the cracks are the people that are suffering, right? And fortunately or unfortunately, I recognize my privileged situation that I'm in that majority. That's why I'm being caught in this very nice wave lah, because the sea is, the wind is blowing one direction. As long as your sail is in the same direction, I think it shouldn't be very tough lah. So that I just recognize that privilege, but I also understand where the rest, when especially in the rallies, and the Workers' Party shout and shout, GST shouldn't increase at sky high inflation rates. Then they say MAS cited 40% increase because of GST, extra turbocharging inflation, those kind of things. I can understand where they're coming from, and I can understand why a large group of people are going to attend those rallies. Because most of the time they just need somebody to speak up for them. And if they don't, I think there is the law of physics of motion, right? Like saying it will not change its motion unless there's a force acting on it. And all they're trying to vote for is somebody to be that opposing force from time to time coming in with an opposing like way of hinting you that, hey, maybe that's not the best way going forward. So that's all. But at least on this GST front, though, I do have my own quite a personal gripe, though. I just wanted to hear like maybe Bunti's perspective on this GST thing. Do you think they should be raising this 2% in the last 2-3 years?
I'm not that familiar in terms of like what's the rationale. My understanding is that they don't need the money now, but they will need the money in the future because like aging populations, hence there's more, expenditures required in the future. So it's a bit like taking in the money first and then build out the buffer for future, which I'm sure they have done the maths and then it worked out. But I'm thinking, right, what's the alternative? Let's say if we don't raise that 2% or even we lower it. So you lower the GST, lower income for the governments. So it's either governments spend less on the stuff they are spending on, for example, like, all the project that we're having, the corridor, the highway, the library, all these things, they have to cut back on the spending, or somewhere need to give way if you say we don't want to increase that 2%. It's either we sacrifice something else today or we sacrifice the future, right? So I'm not expert in all these policy things. I just, it's a bit like blind faith, and I trust they have done their homework. As long as there's not so much of waste and corruptions, then I think all this increase, I think it makes sense. Then we just play along now. And just for context, right? Although GST that 2% looks big, right? It's still nothing as compared to many, let's say like Western countries like in Europe. They have quite like much higher tax. And I think our income tax also is much lower as compared to many other countries. So I don't think tax burden is something that is too much to handle. It's still manageable, but also I think sometimes oppositions try to oppose, also try to make the government thinks more when it comes to this kind of decisions. So there's one part that's the policy making, the other part is that to make people understand the rationale. I think that's the communications part is also important.
Yeah, I super agree with what Bunti has said. In fact, I feel that the communication part, right, the persuasion of the public needs to be up a notch, particularly for the incumbent, because the opposition are kind of using this cost of living, GST, is it being timely and all that, right, to stir up like feelings of unhappiness in the population. But if the government is able to communicate, to persuade, to make the common man understand, not just saying that, oh, we must be responsible, we are doing the best for you guys and all that. They cannot come from a top-down position. Consultative is a good thing, but on top of consultative, right, you also need to like persuade people. Like they need to know that you are taking in their opinions and doing the best for them. So in the context of all this factor, we are choosing this for you. So this is the best course of action for us. Rather than is that we know, trust.
Because I personally think GST is okay. I mean, the use of it, okay, a lot of people, I think on Reddit, I saw, wow, regressive tax, the top, as a percentage of income, the poor pays more. But the fact is that the lower income, they get GST vouchers, they get redistribution. So when you take a regressive tax and then you redistribute it to the lower income, it becomes progressive. So I really don't understand people who say there is a regressive tax. That's the number one thing. Second is whether or not it's turbocharged inflation. I think there was some guy, was it some Professor Ben or something, that said, you know how some people say that you shouldn't increase GST in a two-step way, right? They criticize you went up from 7 to 8, then 8 to 9, but that gave people the chance to change prices twice, right? I mean, same thing, then you can level the same reasoning to inflation, right? Now we know cost of living going up. We know that GST is going up, right? So same thing, do you want to wait until, okay, so cost of living, people increase prices now. Then after that, 2 years, 3 years later, when cost of living not so much an issue, then you raise the GST, then people raise prices again. Same thing, right? You want the price rises to be at the same time. So I don't know. You have to make up your mind. Do you want to criticize them for the two-step increase, or do you want to be okay with them, or do you want to criticize them for coinciding GST increase with inflation, right? You cannot both ways also criticize them, lah. Okay, so in summary, I feel that the intent of increasing GST is to pay for social spending, right? You want to help the low income, you have to raise revenue from somewhere. And second, the timing of it, there's no good time to raise prices, so you might as well do it all at once during the cost of living, when inflation is high.
I heard of this very interesting podcast from, was it one of the economists, basically talking about, or he's basically pushing for the idea that Singapore has always been super turbocharging our reserves and our surplus. So we are a surplus nation, right? And because of the earlier years of the past 60 years, that's why we managed to build up such a big reserve. And there was a call for massive amount of surplus to maybe lesser surplus so that you are able to redistribute. Actually, the idea of GST, I agree that it's for future use cases, but I do buy into the argument from some of these opposition people saying that maybe we hold it off for a while. And the fact of the matter is that we still ended with surpluses in 2024, 2023, 2022. And if we don't put in this 1-2% increase, it will just be lesser surplus, and not saying that we will go into a deficit. So that's why I think people get triggered, you see, like in terms of the timing of the execution and whatnot. And then, of course, to make the matters worse, right, you have some MPs from the incumbent saying that, and I quote, "While we do not like the pain at all, a little pain is necessary because it is what makes us alert. It is what keeps us alive," unquote. I, I, I I don't know. I just don't know how to feel as a citizen that we are already experiencing quite a bit of pain from global pressures. And I know for all counts that this is not the fault of the ruling party because it's a global phenomenon. But a lot of all these side things or side quests are personally inflicted upon us. And it's not like we are really so desperate in needing money now. I know we like to plan for the future, but uh, I also know that there's no right time to implement. But then maybe we can adopt more of a wait and see approach because it's not necessarily like a pandemic that comes in and we need to solve it immediately. We can hold it off for a while and we can plan accordingly again. And because we like to create task forces, right, we can then study this issue and to see what's the better way to chart forward. So I think that feels to me like a bit more because it was already pre-planned, and then since we already have a plan, let's just execute it. I don't care what circumstances we are in now, we just go ahead. So that felt to me like they didn't really put too much thought into it, into the implementation itself lah. So that was my personal opinion on this whole GST hike increase thing. Not so much to say that they turbocharge or what, because I also don't have data or statistics. It's you say, she say, he say, and then he claimed this, you claim that, and then it's like I said again, we cannot run a parallel world and then see that if we increase or don't increase, and then whether there's a very very good comparison on that front or not. So that's just my own point of
Chicken,
view.
I
Yeah.
I I kind of remember seeing this parliamentary debate, right, where one of the ministers or someone who actually said that they actually ran a deficit before you add in the returns from our this GIC, Temasek and all that. So they have this sovereign wealth fund, right? That has a return, and then they earmark 50% to put back into the reserve to increase it, and then 50% to put into our budget. So before that
Yes.
50% was added, right? They say it's actually running on deficit, right? That's why they need to put the GST in place so that it will not keep running on deficit.
But then my natural question is, we are talking about a crisis of our generation, right? Like this is extraordinary times, right?
Mm.
Are we not? I mean, if we recognize that fact and this is something special, actually, who dictates this 50%? I did watch the documentary from PM that time, talking to CNA about 50% for current users, next time for future users as well. We want to save for our next generation. I completely understand those factors, but I think, like we said, right, like 2020 all the way until today, 2025, COVID, pandemic, your inflation crisis, your war, and whatever. I think all these are, you can chain everything up and say that we are in extraordinary times. And when we are going down to the technicalities of saying, oh, you are deficit for by a few $1 billion and whatnot, I don't know whether the discussion is in the right place as well on where is the focus should be at, and how do we push this. Of course, then you can come back and argue. To steelman myself is that, oh, what if we extraordinary all the way until this is the new normal, and then there is nowhere to discuss and then no time to better to implement. But then I would think that at least if we hold it off for a while, and then you have a more persuasive argument. You see, like, oh, the last 5 years we have already decided to implement this XYZ, we didn't, and then we have incurred XYZ amount of deficit, and then you go on to explain that, with that in mind, this new world order, whatever it is, and then you try to implement. I think that would be a better case rather than now you are just implementing head on. But yeah, Seth.
My question would then be, right, to anyone who's questioning why government raised GST, like, what is the incentive for them to do so? Why do something so unpopular that you can risk losing your elected seats over the GST increase? It's not like it's going to the minister's pocket, right? They are not directly benefiting from it. Okay, the reason they gave, I feel that you can just take it as face value, is really for the long-term sustainability of the country, right? So why would I want to do something so unpopular if I know that I will lose some seats? Because my only thought is that they are just really planning for long-term and being prudent. And it's very difficult for me to find fault in that kind of logic, unless someone can tell me a reason why they're increasing GST. Is it to line their own pocket? Is it to, I don't know, what do they stand to gain from that? I think a very nice parallel I like to draw, right? I always like to compare Singapore to Apple as a company. I think there's so many parallels there. Okay, and one of the parallels is that Apple also hoards a lot of cash, a lot of reserves. And that's because of their experience that they had. They almost died as a company. And therefore they became very conservative about cash. They want to make sure that they can always, in anything happens, they can sustain themselves. And I feel that Singapore, COVID, right? If anything were to teach us a lesson, it would be COVID law. That Singapore has nothing but money. Leh. And then in some situations, right, we see that money can only get us so far. Leh, right? I think Vietnam stopped exporting their rice during COVID. Taiwan stopped exporting masks. Then we can only use money to get us in the front of the line for things like vaccines. So if we don't even have this, what are we, Singapore, we're really a little red dot that has nothing else in our name to survive on. So is it really that questionable that our leaders are prudent, does something unpopular at the risk of their own popularity to help our country shore up our reserves? I really don't think there's an issue there. Okay, of course, you can argue maybe can calibrate better, redistribute more, which I think they have been doing a lot. CDC vouchers they've been giving, GST voucher they've been increasing. So what? I don't know. I don't see a better way of doing things.
I don't have issues with the redistribution, by the way. I'm just thinking like from the optics of how they've carried out or implemented,
Yeah, the
would
optics
have
is
told a
terrible
better
lah.
story to the people
I
than
always say that they need to fire their PR people.
that's my main gripe lah, in terms of how they storytell this whole GST thing. Especially so, I would think that actually to steelman myself, right, or to understand from your perspective saying that because it's an unpopular decision and everybody knows, there will probably be one group of people that thinks that, oh, because they might be, they've lost touch of the ground. They don't know that they will lose votes. I'm not too sure whether they know or in a way, they think that they can still push through most of whatever. Anyway, they run the supermajority. And they also know that they will be the governing body. So truth be told, they might not consider too much about the storytelling part or the communications part anyway, because let's be real. Let's touch our hearts and ask ourselves. This round, they're still going to win the supermajority. Even if one more, two more GRC goes down, they're still going to make up the government. And a lot of all these losing one key, two key anchor ministers, all these are narrative building, right? Like they will still make up a large part. So that's that perspective that in a way, yeah, Lord, they just don't care too much about the optics and they just think, oh, this is important, this is good for the country, they just carry on. But it's through these feedback mechanisms and process that they know that maybe they need to communicate better, fire the PR team, whatever it is, to tell a better story. And I think that this feedback mechanism, at least in our current democracy, it should be working. And hopefully it will work in the upcoming few general elections as well. So that's just my thinking on this part.
I always like to look at motivation lah. Like what's the end motivation of someone when they do something, and I cannot find anything insidious about it. Is it poorly communicated? I think they tried their best lah. They keep talking about GST voucher, but people seem to just ignore it. In fact, James Lim said they don't want to rely on handouts. Then 1 minute later, he said, when is government going to increase our wages? I'm like, huh? I thought you just said you don't want to depend on the system. Then now you're asking the system to increase your wages. Okay.
I when you talk about this, I just remembered. I think there was this clip. They clipped out from Grace Fu's speech. She said that they take from you a chicken wing and then they give you a whole chicken.
It's true. That was, for the lower income people, how much taxes do lower income and not so privileged families incur? They incur close to no tax. Maybe they pay GST, but then they get back GST vouchers, they get more CDC vouchers, they get a lot of rebates, they get, if they are qualified for it, they get Comcare, all kind of things. They do get back a chicken wing, and they do get back a chicken,
a whole chicken. Yeah.
And then I know the popular what's it called? Adage is that, oh, they give you one chicken wing, take back a whole chicken. But you think about it, can a country take only chicken wings in and then give out chickens? Cannot, it's just not possible, right? So it's all about redistribution, and I'm sure, okay, for people who are higher earners, they pay income tax, they pay GST, they definitely pay one chicken and they get back maybe one chicken wing, right? But yeah, that's what high earners have to so-called like national duty, right? So that it's a progressive taxation model, yeah. So the whole chicken wing thing.
Then there's a very witty comment as well. I wanted to get your opinion. Is there a probable implementation that you just give me the chicken without the chicken wing, so that I don't need to give you the chicken wing?
That is non-progressive taxation, That means lower income don't get more than they get. Then higher income, higher income will be very, very happy with that kind of model, what? right? I don't have to pay more tax than I receive in benefits. Then okay lah. I mean, for
Yeah.
sure, all the high income earners, okay, let's agree to that. But then who pays for the assistance that the low income people get? It's a zero sum game. Of course, okay, it's less of a zero sum game when you can increase the pie, increase productivity, increase wages, which the government has been trying to do. Are they doing a good job? Of course, opposition will say no and all. But I think if we ignore that for now, a zero sum game, how you slice the cake is like that. There's no such thing as government's money. It's taxpayers' money, right? Margaret Thatcher always say that. So how do you distribute it? Uh, I think our system currently is okay. You cannot overtax. Okay, my contention is that I feel that there are some wealth taxes that they are not exploring because the truly wealthy actually they don't get their income from working income, right? There's no capital gains, there's no estate tax. The only wealth tax that we have so far is GST, okay, right, which is some people say is regressive, but again got vouchers. And then maybe BSD buyer stamp duty for property. But I think you
Car
surely
tax.
you can, yeah, car. But surely you can tax them a little bit more, just for even for symbolism I feel that. Okay, but already you cannot overtax rich people right? It's already paying. They're already paying chickens, not just one chicken. I don't think I'm a super high earner, but I feel that every year I pay a lot more than what I get back, and then to me it's like okay that's just the way the game is all.
If not, I have one small topic I wanted to explore, which is Seth's background, right? Which is this look left, look right thing. I think basically it gone set very viral. I think got millions of views on Mothership or whatnot. Not too sure whether you guys watched the video. I presume you all did watch the video. I had a personal, like, small debate with a private friend, with a friend privately. I did told him that I think for us we understand because we are part of the, like, we are doing media as a side hustle. We have some sort of an influence. We get some sort of comments and feedback, but that's on a pretty small scale. At least to me, I think even at 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 still small scale. This guy went viral overnight. And when you look through like comments and commentaries and people doing stitching with whatever on Reels, on TikTok, right? It feels to me like when I look at it from a third party's perspective, it's good that he's taking it like a champ because I've seen him talk in his own rally and people miming him, right? But I would think that this is cyberbullying at a very, very massive steroid scale. Like, it's incomprehensible, especially for somebody that has no, like, so-called media training. He has no exposure to social media. And I just want to get your thoughts on, like, Seth, what's your perspective on this? Like, let's put that aside. Like, we understand that it's a bit funny. It goes viral, gives him some sort of like name
It's very
exposure.
funny.
Sorry?
It's very funny.
Yeah, okay. I concur to that, but in that perspective, if something do happen, where do we lay the responsibility on that? I don't know whether you get where I'm coming from with this question. Like, I do
think,
feel a bit.
yeah. I do get that, but I think if you put yourself in the public scrutiny, in the media's eye, I mean, it's a press conference, right? You should know that whatever you say, you are being watched, being judged. Same thing, I can talk about how I am doing something with my, what's that called? Savings account. Okay, not really savings account.
Bond fund account.
What's the
Bond fund account.
okay, and then I cannot flame left, right? But I didn't expect that out also, right? Because to me it's like, hey, I am just doing something with my money, right? And I'm telling my crowd that I'm doing this, and then it was taken out of context, and then I cannot flame. Okay, in my mind, that's it lah. That's the price to pay when you air your thoughts publicly. And if you are going to hold a media conference and you're going to sing a song badly translated in a very funny way, you're going to be made fun of. Right? And on a bigger scale of things, I feel that this kind of opposition people, I don't know. I feel like you are just doing the opposition a disservice also. I'm sure even opposition supporters will agree with me that this kind of people maybe you don't run even better lah.
I had this conversation also because it extended, because I was thinking, right, let's say we know of recent cases of rise of bullying, right, in school. And then it's very easy because it's a group of people. It's very easy to push down or to hang the responsibility on somebody or some groups. But then to the extent when now it's happening like that, and then it goes to such a big scale, And then it just goes viral after viral after viral, right? And then there's so many people going like playing in, and then it becomes like a national movement, if I can even say. Because a few of my friends, even in private groups, is like keep look left, look right, that going on with this whole movement, right? It becomes like, oh, everybody makes it like so normal. They don't think it's bullying of any sort. They just, oh yeah lah, it's just a running joke lor. And then okay lor, so be it. They cast out the responsibility. They don't think it's fine. It's fun and dandy. I don't know. I just feel like it's a bit not right if we are, especially when we go into this election season, a lot of us talking about like wanting to build a more compassionate Singapore, right? I really don't know where we are landing with this whole movement.
I think
Yeah.
it's fine. I think it's like, okay, being made fun of course, sucks, lah, but at least it's not death threats. It's not, I'll report you to police. I'll report you. I hope you lose your job. I hope you lose your home. Yeah, I hope you become bankrupt.
I find it
kena
weird that
all
I
the-
get I get those I understand where your references are coming from. So do you think those are also different
Mm,
variations of cyberbullying that
yeah,
needs to
it
be
is.
reported?
There's a line, I mean, there's a line between giving negative feedback and there's a line and how to say being being a cyber bully, right? But again, I think as a so-called, if you air your views publicly, people have the right to reply in a public manner. Okay, where it crosses the line, of course, death threats, I think, cross the line, right? Report police, okay, by all means, go and report, lah. You hope that I get bankrupt, go and hope, continue hoping. Maybe my skin a bit thicker, lah. But again, same law, politicians, if you come out to run, I hope that you have the iron in you, right? To at least face some online ridicule, especially if it's warranted. Yeah, you come out and make a funny comment. Like if let's say in this podcast I make some funny, I how to say, I embarrass myself, and people go and do TikTok on it. Okay, lor.
Actually, on this note, right, about putting yourself out there, I know we keep going to subtopics, but there is this recent one from Workers' Party on Drelo, that is the Jalan Kayu SMC guy. I'm not too sure, Seth, you've seen the post.
Yeah.
He apologized, right? Like saying, because there was this very big expose, people keep clipping his private chats using vulgarities, talking
It's
about.
very mouse, yeah.
So you think it's mild. So what's your thoughts on
It's
that
super mild,
so-called
lah.
expose?
It's super mild, and if you expose anyone's personal chats, anyone would. I mean, you expose my personal chat, I think I moved to North Korea already, lah. I don't have to stay here anymore. I mean, yeah, it's just our personal thoughts, very unfiltered. Everybody, I think, can relate, lah. Okay, no matter how, like, you can do any kind of job. You be a teacher, you're a charity social worker. I'm sure your personal chat you have ranted about your job before, so it's a total non-issue. Yeah. And in fact, the things weren't even very 劲爆 leh. It was just,
Right.
it weren't even very
He was just flaming
salacious.
everybody lah. Yeah, he was just
Yeah.
flaming everybody. Which then begs the point, right? So I had this conversation again with a friend. Different friends, by the way. All these people are talking to. But yeah, anyway, I was talking to a friend. Then he was saying, do you know what's a sinky mentality? I'm not too sure whether you're on Reddit or on Hardware Zone, but
Sinky
it
porn,
feels to me
sinky.
like, honestly, right, I feel like I ask myself very genuinely on the list of things that he say. Of course, not everything I will hit, but I think there will be a few things that we resonate quite deeply, at least for from a Singaporean mindset. And do you feel like we are kind of like, I don't know, entitled? We think that we're always better than people. That's why we always feel like, well, we are holier than thou. That's why we can scold people. And then this kind of thing, they also want to create expose. I presume he says his group of business friends, right? And then they're trying to pull him down and release his whatever, airing this kind of laundries out. Yeah, it's just a sinky pond, sinky mentality, right? I don't know. I just wanted to open this discussion up. What do you think? Or if you want to clarify the terms.
No, I just want to respond to that post because I was also sharing with Chiking, right? I say this kind of things, let's say if you one day run for elections, right? For sure, either your opponents or people from the public, right? They will try to dig shits about what you said in the past, how you acted in the past, right? So they will look for negative things because those things will viral, will spread, right? Then if what they can find is just like some vulgarities in terms of your like personal chat, right? It's not even a public statement, right? So usually that is to me, right, a sign of like this candidate is clean, because you see people already try to dig shits and all they can find is this kind of things. I think the scary part is not this kind of like, this is style, right? The how he talks, right? But the dangerous part is that really people who are super good at covering, and then they do all sorts of like evil things, and nobody either know about it or dare to speak about it. I think that is really the scary unknown part. This type of like just talking style, I think they are fine. I don't think that's a big issue. So I definitely agree with Seth. It's really very nothing.
I think got good or bad lah, right? The good thing is you can see that we expect high level for our politicians, right? Like, adultery in any other, okay, not any other lah, in many countries will, it's another Sunday afternoon for their politicians lah. Okay, but over here it's like, wow, they lose their seat completely. Yeah, but the bad thing is I feel like sometimes we treat them as superhuman, which they are not lah. They're also human lah, right? So we are all fallible. Yeah, so I don't think we should expect perfection from our leaders. I mean, it's good to hold them to a higher standard, but yeah, let's not be unrealistic lah. Same thing like housing, let's not be unrealistic. Our politicians also, you don't have to think that they are gods or anything lah. They also just people lor, trying to live their best lives, and sometimes they fall short lah.
Yeah, I got a last question for you guys, right? Do you guys feel that $1 million salary, right? Or in some cases 2 million, does it is it detrimental to like our incumbent government, like the office holders? Like, because most of the opposition and their supporters, they will say that, oh, they are out of touch because they earn so much. How can they relate to us, common man in the street? Do you all think that it is should we seriously think about like getting people to serve out of duty, out of service to the country, like the first generation leaders? Can we possibly ever go back to that mood? Or do you all think that it is because everyone looks out for their interest, they are already taking a pay cut, significant one. Why would anyone wants to come into government?
It needs to be decent. I think that's if
What's
you can't
decent?
even
What's
if you
decent?
can't even pay a decent, like let's say average salary is not decent. You need to be like you say though, some bigger numbers like 1 million. Because I'm thinking all these things about pay, right? It's all about benchmarking, right? So if you are just average salary or average income, right? Then you compare, say that, oh, 1 million is how many times of my annual incomes, right? Of course you feel bad about it. But actually if you benchmark against, let's say, like just CEO, right? Just in CEO in Singapore, like big corporates, their salary is way larger than 1 million, right? So let's say like the bank CEO, they are in like closer to 10 millions, including all the bonus, right? So if you benchmark against that, then the 1 million isn't that big anymore. So and these we are talking about like ministers, right? It's not like everyone, it's not every MP has this kind of annual income. So I think it is reasonable. I don't think that is so out of touch.
I don't think so lah, because our biggest and main opposition party also seem to agree on those kind of salaries. Personally, I feel that it's a bit on the higher side. I mean, they did take a pay cut before. It used to be higher. Then they took a 50% pay cut. And it's been stagnant since lah. I'm actually undecided on this issue lah. On one hand, I can see why we need high salaries. On the other hand, I feel like, wow, the salaries for some people, it seems a bit high. So yeah, I really don't know what to feel about this.
No comments though. I think if you really want a answer to this, go and do a referendum. Let the people decide. Anyway, it's a people's business as well. So yeah. You can take a median, you can take an average amongst 6 million people, and then you see what do you think is a comfortable one that people generally think it is. If not, I think it's a very arbitrary number. You put at X amount, people keep saying it's too expensive, too much. You put at Y amount, some people say it's too cheap, nobody wants to come out and serve. I honestly think if you want to put SME or LKY the other time, the amount of money that they gather, the amount of contribution they can see tangibly being affected in Singapore, people don't question the salary. But then it comes a bit iffy when you go into the mayor discussion and then people start bringing out all these more side stuff and then saying that they are not putting in their weight. Then yeah, it becomes a very muddy discussion. So for this, whatever it is, it has been working. They are not losing mandate over it. Then carry on there. Until it becomes a very, very painful touch point. then something would change, lor. If not, I think now we have more important and pressing issue that we want to discuss, lah. The ministerial salaries are one of the lower ones in the priority list compared to like HDB affordability, GST, yeah, things like that, and the wage growth and stuff. So, yeah. If not, I think this has been a very, very long and extended discussion about this GE season. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any comments or you want to spar with anybody, please feel free to leave it in the comments down below. Hope continue developing the discussion. If not, we'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.
Hope I don't get cancelled.